Hey guys, PepperAmmy here. This week we are making a Thai green curry soup with steamed chicken dumplings and some rice noodles. Now this is probably going to be my most ambitious soup I'm making this year, or possibly, for future years, depending on how well Souptember does. It may sound daunting, but once you break it down, it is actually a super simple soup to make, and with some prep, it is quite quick as well. Now first of all, we are going to need to make our dumplings. Now you can of course use pre-made dumpling wrappers, but if you can't get hold of any, the dough is really easy to make, and all you need is 280 grams of white flour and between 180 and 200 mils of just off the boil hot water. Now the easiest way to make the dough is in a food processor. Simply add the flour and slowly pour in the water while the processor is running. Once all the water has been added, run the processor for 5 to 10 seconds more and then tip the dough onto a work surface and knead until you have a uniform dough that holds together. Now if you don't have a food processor, you can make this by hand. Just add the flour to a bowl instead and use a wooden spoon to combine. Then once cooled enough to handle, bring the dough together and knead as before. Now once the dough has come together, place it in a plastic bag and fold over. This way you trap the steam that will be coming off the warm dough, and it will kind of help soften itself as it rests. Now we have our dumpling dough, we need something to fill it with. Now for the chicken meat for the filling, the best cut to use is thigh, as it is fattier and therefore will lead to a more moist final product than using a breast cut. And then for seasonings and flavours of the filling, I used 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, some salt, some pepper, 2 tablespoons of honey. This is just to add some nice sweetness to the dumplings. A good sized chunk of ginger, sliced and diced, or even grated, or you could even use a ginger paste. 2 to 3 sliced green spring onions. Now if you want to play on the curry flavour a little bit more, you can add in a dash of green curry paste. And then optionally some sesame seeds for some flavour and texture as well. Now all you want to do is slice your onions, mince your ginger and add everything to a bowl and give a good mix, and then simply place in the fridge to let the flavours develop. Now before making a large batch of these for dinner, it's always good to have a trial run to taste the seasoning and play around with folding techniques and cooking times. Now the traditional way of forming your actual dumplings is by taking the dough, poking a hole in the middle to form a donut shape and squeeze to make a nice even sausage and slice into even pieces. Now there is a much simpler way of doing this that is less time consuming, and that is simply just rolling the dough out around 2mm thick and using a good sized cookie cutter to cut some nice round discs. Now this is much faster, but in order to reform and reuse your dough scraps, you will have to reform the ball and let it rest for a bit, as this is quite a glutinous dough. Now this is where your fun and creativity can come to the dish. And there are many ways of folding dumpling wrappers, and some are fairly easy and some I didn't even bother trying. But this is where your test batch comes in to find which folding technique you are most comfortable with. Now if you choose to make your dumplings the traditional way, you want to take a part of your dough and roll just around the edges by just doing a roll, a turn, a roll, a turn, a roll, a turn. Basically to just try and keep it as round as possible. Then you want to roll it to around about 2 to 3mm thick, depending on how thick you want your dumplings. You want to add a good teaspoon and up to a tablespoon depending on the size of your wrappers. And then just place that in the center of one of your wrappers Now, one of the most simple folds is to fold the wrapper in half, forming a semicircle, and try and press all the air out as you seal the edges using your finger and thumb, and then crimp the top. Now the next one is yet another super simple design that goes by Rosebud as far as I know. Now you just take one of your rolled wrappers, place some filling in the center, bring the edges together to form a semicircle like before, and then just overlap the outer points and pinch to seal. And finally, a slightly trickier one, the bow bun. Now these can be a bit fiddly to make. As you can see on my board, my first attempt isn't the best, as I am no way an expert at dumpling folding. But the only way to get better is with practice. Now once again, place the filling in the center of the wrapper. This time you want to make a coin bag kind of shape by bringing the edges up and folding them over each other. Now you want to pinch this together at the top until it is sealed all the way around, and then you can optionally add a slight twist to the top to ensure a nice tight seal. Now there are many more dumpling folding techniques out there. There are some amazingly beautiful looking ones, but I'm only trying 3 in this. Might do a standalone video at some point where I look a bit more in depth at dumpling folding. If that is something that interests you, let me know down below. Now if you are using a metal or a bamboo steamer, you want to fill a saucepan that your steamer fits nicely on with a good seal around the edges to help raise the steam through the steamer. And then fill it with a few inches of water and bring to a boil. Now you should line your steamer with parchment paper, cabbage leaves, or even a silicone steamer sheet, as these are dough and they will stick to the steamer as they cook. Now once the water is boiling, add your dumplings to the steamer and let them steam for around 10 minutes. Now you don't want to remove the lid whilst they are cooking, or, well, the steam's going to escape. Now once cooked, remove from the steamer, place on a plate and taste for seasoning and add anything you think it might be missing. This is where you can alter your salt and pepper balance a little bit more, or if you want a bit more sweetness, you can add in a bit more honey. Now of course, there is a much simpler way of testing these. That is just to fry a bit of the mixture in a pan and taste that way too. But by doing the test run, you get to play with your cooking times and your folding techniques. Now if you want to, you can prepare all of your dumplings now and place it in the fridge and then steam whilst the curry soup is cooking. Now talking of which, this is Souptember, so where is the soup?
There's more soup! What do you mean there's more soup? There's just more soup! Go into the next aisle! There's still soup! Where are you right now? I'm at soup!
To prepare your soup, you want to dice an onion, a thumb-sized piece of ginger, and a few cloves of garlic, and then fry them over medium heat with some oil until softened and fragrant. Then simply pour over a can of coconut milk. Add in a few teaspoons of green curry paste, depending on how curry-like you want your soup. Stir to combine and then add in 500 ml of chicken stock and bring to a boil and then reduce to a simmer. Now whilst your soup is simmering, you can optionally cook some rice noodles to help pad out the soup as well. And then for the vegetables of the soup, I'm using some sugar snap peas or baby peas, or depending on where you come from, they all have different names. And then some broccoli and some carrots. Now for the peas, I'm just slicing each one into 3 to 4 pieces. Then just simply trim your broccoli down to just have the florets rather than the stalks. And then I'm just using a potato peeler to make some nice carrot curls, as these are going to be more of a garnish, but of course you can eat them. Then add the peas and the broccoli to the soup and cook for 2 to 3 minutes until the peas are nice and tender. And then optionally at the end you can add in some lime zest and a squeeze of lime juice and then simply serve. Now to plate this dish, I just simply put some rice noodles into the bowl first, ladled over some soup, added a couple of dumplings and a few carrot curls on top. And there you have it, a Thai green curry soup with dumplings and rice noodles. Now I understand this is probably one of my longer cooking videos for Souptember at the moment, and if you have made it this far, thank you very much. The support from Souptember has been absolutely amazing, especially with the tomato soup video. Now I understand this is a more complicated video, so less people are probably going to end up trying it, but if you do end up trying it, or if it does pique your interest, let me know down below. And as always, if you like what you see, let me know down below with a like and a comment, or even a suggestion for a recipe to try. Now if you are new here, feel free to subscribe for weekly cooking content, and as always, thanks for watching.